Hi everyone. Right, well, it's a lovely day today here in the northeast of England. So it's not raining, it's not too windy, and it's not too cold. So I thought it's the perfect opportunity to show you my new cold frames that my husband's built for me and the space where I'm going to put them. So this is one of the cold frames. This is it without its lid on. And I had a large tin of dark grey paint. So rather than black, I'm using the grey paint, which I think looks really nice. These are the sides and the planks that are going to make up the other cold frame. So I'm going to have two. And then I just painted this trellis because it was in my way and I thought I'll give that a lick of paint. And then these are the lids. And what I've decided to do is I'm not going to glaze the lids because if you've been watching my videos, you know how windy it is in my garden. And I really don't want any more glazing that could shatter or splinter if I put perspex in. So I've decided that I've ordered some really heavy polythene and I'm going to staple it to the lids because all I really need these cold frames to do is protect my young plants from the extremes of temperature like frost and snow, but also heavy rain. So it's going to be clear polythene and we'll put a good lock on so that they don't fwang open. So yeah, these have all had 2 coats of paint. I didn't make any videos of me painting these because you must be sick of seeing videos of me painting stuff. So all I need to do now is flip this one over and give the very bottom rail, which is this thickness, 2 coats of paint. So if you're fortunate enough to have a little bit of space where you can put a cold frame, I would definitely recommend you get one because for years I didn't have a cold frame and it made hardening off really labor intensive and quite awkward. So hardening off, if you don't know, is when your young seedlings reach a certain size where you would think, right, they're garden ready, but they've been in the sort of warmth and comfort of a greenhouse. Particularly in my garden up here in the northeast of England, I couldn't put those young seedlings straight out into the garden. I'll just go and get a tray and show you. So say your seedlings are this big. So if I took those seedlings straight out of the greenhouse now and put them into my garden here in the northeast of England, they wouldn't survive. I know they wouldn't. You can see how they're getting a slight breeze there. It isn't really that windy today, but if the wind was any stronger, it would just flatten them and they would not stand back up. And also they haven't got the root ball that would support that plant through like a hard frost or anything. So hardening off is when you put plants roughly this size, ready for your garden, into another protected area that isn't as protected as the greenhouse, for example, a cold frame. So in the past, to harden off plants that size, I would have been bringing them out of the greenhouse every day when it wasn't too windy or rainy, putting them out in the garden, and then a few hours later taking them back in again, watching the weather. So if it went really cold, whiz out, bring them back into the greenhouse again. So if you can put your young plants that size into a cold frame, it's much less labor intensive because they just stay there. You're not lifting them in and out the greenhouse anymore. You're just basically lifting the lid or shutting the lid depending on what the temperatures are like. So that is a tray of seedlings, which these are young foxgloves. They definitely aren't ready to go in a cold frame. these have to stay in the greenhouse a bit longer until they're a sort of like that size, sort of garden ready size, when you think, yeah, you'll survive. Right, so I'll take you and I'll show you the space that I have to put the cold frames in. Right, so this is the space I have. It's not very big. So in this area here, there was a huge London plane tree. It was as tall as our house, right up there. And if you've been watching my videos, you'll know I have lots of very big trees in my garden. It's very shady. The London plane, we decided to take it down, A, because it was right up against this wall here, which isn't a good thing. And B, it's not a particularly interesting kind of tree. They're used mainly in landscaping city centres because they grow very, very tall very quickly. But because this is a south-facing aspect, you can imagine the London plane just casts shadow right over the back of my garden here, which is really why it hasn't been cultivated. And also it would have cast shade right up that side of the garden as well, on that south-facing border, as well as my new greenhouse. So the London planes come down, and then we paid extra, and they came and they ground the stump out, because I didn't realise, but when you cut a tree down, usually you have to pay extra, otherwise they just leave the stump there, which would mean this space was still useless. And I needed the space for the cold frame. I've measured the site, and my husband's built me a cold frame to fit in between my two compost bins here. So very practical. The other space is here at the back of the greenhouse. And I've measured it, so I'm going to step in here. So I'm going to fill this area here. You can see where the foundations for the greenhouse have been. So I'm going to fill this with soil, put a base down, and yes, it's going to be a bit squished because I didn't want to get rid of my two beautiful rhododendrons here. I don't want to look out of the greenhouse and see my compost bins. As much as I love them, they're not a thing of beauty. So I'm just going to set the camera up on the tripod here and show you how I'm going to clear this area. This is lovely. It's all the wood chippings off the tree, so I'm just going to bag that up and I'll use this as mulch in the garden. So I've got a lovely dumpy bag full of ground up tree bark. I'm going to level this ground off now. So I've filled in the back of the greenhouse there. Right, so it's the base for my cold frames. We've had these slate tiles in the garage for years and years, so I'm going to use those, but you could use weed membrane or anything, brick, whatever. Right, so I've got my cold frames in their position, and I've got a nice bit of polythene on the top of them and a handle there. So when this goes up, the way I'm going to keep it up, I've decided, is I've got a short bungee cord, and I'll loop it around there, and then I'll loop it on the hedge, and then the lid will stay up like that. So this is my other cold frame in its final position. And what I've decided to do here is, because the lid on the cold frame will be open most of the time. That's the whole point of the cold frame. You need to let the wind in to sort of gently rock the plants and strengthen their root ball. And it's only going to be closed when it's a very strong wind or if it's lashing down with rain. So what I've decided to do is, I don't want this being caught by the wind and bash it into the greenhouse. So I'm going to have two little bolts or something put on there, so I can put the lid up, it won't touch the glass, and I'll bolt it into place. Right, so I've got a short bungee cord here, and we'll just see if this is going to work. I don't want anything awkward about holding the lid up, because you've usually got hands full of plants. So if the wind blew that back, it wouldn't damage anything, and it certainly can't close. What do you think of that?
Well, you could loop it round. If you want it a bit higher. Yeah.
So I've just looped it round like that. I think that's great. That's a much better idea, looping it round. So yeah, it's quite windy today, so that's a good test of it. And you'll see that I've put the slate tiles on the bottom of the cold frames. You don't need a bottom. I had these slate tiles lying around. You could use a weed membrane or just the earth. I just think the cold frame, the wood of the cold frame sitting on the tiles, it's better than it's sitting on wet earth, and it will stop the majority of weeds coming up if there are any. So I've got 2 bags of Cotswold stone for each cold frame. I'm going to lay that on the base so that when I put my young plants in and I'm watering from above, they've got free drainage. Slightly smaller, this one. Excellent. So there we go, another job done. I'm delighted with them, and I can't wait to get into the greenhouse now, to pot on some of those new seedlings and get them into their new home. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.